How's it going, everybody? So we're out in the shop, and in this episode we are working on the handle scales for the Wakizashi build. Now, so far we've done some hand sanding to this. I still got to do a little bit more hand sanding, and I'm going to be doing that off camera. But right now we've done a 220 grit, and I just started getting into the 320 grit on it, and I'll tell you, I've got hours already invested in this with just doing the 220 grit because of how much blade we have to sand here. But this is just what it looks like with just getting into the 320 grit. You can actually start seeing, you know, the hammer forged area there. I really like the way this is turning out. So that hammer forged like texture area goes into the ricasso. I like the way that this transitions from that into these really sleek bevels that we have here, and then you have that cool transition into the tip, because these are flat bevels and then this is a convex ground tip, so it's actually rounded, which is cool there. I just really like this. I think it's going to be an awesome sword. I can't wait to actually go ahead and use it. Not to say I haven't. I've already cut water bottles and all that. It's already crazy sharp just from doing the hand sanding, because I am doing a zero edge on it. So I do got to be careful whenever I'm hand sanding so I don't accidentally cut myself. But without further ado, let's show you what we're actually going to be working on today. So we're going to be doing a bunch of different materials here. So we've got black 1/8 inch thick G10 material. Then we've got some gray vulcanized paper liners. I don't know how thick they are. All of these liners come the same exact thickness, the little vulcanized paper ones. They don't really make super thick versions of it, but vulcanized paper. And then we're doing some burl. This is actually a remnant off of the Damascus build that we were doing. This is the same handle scales that we were using on it. But what I'm going to be doing is taking these and putting them all together like this, so that gray liner's in between the two black layers. And if you don't know what that does, if you haven't seen me actually do this particular, do it this way, what ends up happening is whenever I start shaping the edges of all this, you get a cool line all the way around it, which is really cool. I like the way it looks, but it's going to be subtle because it's going to be gray. Now we're going to take the burl and put it at the end, and the way that this is going to work, this is actually the butt of the sword, and then this will be closer to the ricasso area. Of course, we got to glue them together, cut them in half once they cure, and then mount them. But what I've already done with this right now, like the prep work going into the actual glue up, is I have sanded all of the layers that are going to touch each other. So sanded this with 100 grit, sanded both sides of the vulcanized paper liner with 100 grit, and sanded the outer layer with 100 grit, plus where this is going to touch both the back side and the side where it's going to actually meet up here. So every area that's going to have an area where it's going to connect has been sanded so that we have a really good mechanical bond. And then of course, all of these layers are going to have pins going through them. There's going to be 3 pins going through the main area and then a pin going through the back area. And I'm going to be using black micarta pins throughout the whole entire area. You'll see the black micarta pin in this, which will look cool. It'll have just one little punch of, you know, just that black in the center of it to tie it in with the scales. And then hopefully you won't really see the black pins going through the black area, and it will look really sleek. So at least that's the goal. I can't wait to start this, so let's go ahead, let's go over here, and let's get this going. So I went ahead and cleaned everything with some acetone so that we got all the little greases and stuff like that off of here from me touching it and messing with it. But what we need to go ahead and do now is mix some epoxy, and we're just doing a 2-part from JB Weld. Now we're just going to do a thin layer on each piece. Doesn't have to be a ton on there, because if you put a whole bunch on it, it's just going to squeeze out. Then we want to make sure we put some in the center, or where on the edge where it meets the other materials, so that you have epoxy in between there. So as we start clamping this down, we just want to apply a little bit of pressure as we go, so that things can still be adjusted, because what's going to happen is these layers are going to want to shift as the epoxy gets squeezed out. It's got to go somewhere. So this middle layer is going to probably try and shoot out a little bit. These little layers might want to separate a little bit, because that epoxy is going to try and go somewhere. So it's going to go through the path of least resistance. So you just want to make sure that you start with just a little bit of pressure and then go from there. So now we are shifting a little bit, so we need to make sure and get everything where it needs to go. See, and what had happened was this center liner the gray liner, it did shift. Plus everything kind of shifted forward a little bit. By the way, this is just an old chisel. It's nothing new or fancy. I'm not ruining a new chisel or anything like that. Okay. Looks like everything's where it needs to be. Now we just gotta wait for it to cure. So I typically go through and mark the scales so that I have a reference, just in case something moves or shifts while I'm drilling the holes, to be able to go back to. So that's the reason why you typically see me do that. Now what we need to do is go ahead and clamp the tang to the scales so that we can go over and start drilling the first couple of holes. And once those are drilled, we'll put pins through there, then take the clamp off and go ahead and drill the back two holes, and go ahead and then get the scales, some of this excess cut out, and get the front area where it's going to meet the ricasso, so this area right here, get it cut up. Now what we're going to do now is just kind of mark where we want this to be. So I'll go through and typically draw where I want everything to end up. So I'm going to go with something about like that. It's going to kind of mirror this a little bit, but not be as drastic. But we'll cut the front off, end up cutting this excess off, this back off, after we get done drilling the holes and have the pins going through here, and go from there. Because once we get that point done, we can go ahead and attach everything together with the epoxy. Well guys, now that we have this all glued up and clamped up and we're waiting for it to cure and dry and all that, we're going to end it here. Now, the goal is for Sunday's video to be where we're shaping this and getting everything finished on this sword. I'm excited about this project. I did a little bit of a, cut testing, sharpness testing on it today, and it is crazy sharp, which is something that's a little bit different than what I'm used to. Typically, whenever I go to start shaping the handle scales, I don't have a sharpened blade. I'm going to have a sharpened blade this whole entire time, so what I'm probably going to go ahead and do is tape some cardboard or something like that around the edge whenever I start shaping the scales, just to make sure I don't cut myself, because I did cut myself plenty of times while sanding this, just accidental bumping up against it, and yeah, it's absolutely crazy sharp. But like I said, the goal for Sunday's video is to get the handle scale shaped, get the sword finished up so y'all can actually see the finished product, and I'll go ahead and do some cutting and all kinds of different stuff in that episode as well. So there you go. Now for the next build series that we have that's coming up, it's going to be for this little guy right here. This is my first cable Damascus build. Can't see the pattern on it right here because I haven't, I did a little test etch on it, and then I ended up cleaning it back up and taking the etching off of it just because I wanted to see what it looked like, and I think y'all are going to absolutely love it. So this is going to be cool. That's going to be a cool build series. That'll probably be a 2-part or 3-part series, but that is the next one that's coming out. My first hand-forged cable Damascus, which is cool because I'm going to be using this particular cable in a build that I have that's coming up that is going to be an absolute insane build. So, you know, we got a lot to look forward to. But guys, that is the end of this one. If y'all would, give this video a thumbs up, share this video or one of my other videos. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel. By this time that the video should be out, we should be right at about 20,000 subscribers. So, yay, that's awesome. Let's go ahead and get to the next marker. 50,000 subscribers. If we get to there, I'm going to do a giveaway build for a Damascus knife. So let's go ahead and make sure we're sharing this and telling other people to subscribe so y'all have a chance to win that. Guys, thanks for coming by. Thanks for spending your time with me. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there, and I'll catch y'all next time.